Welcome to Fantasy Football Live, presented by Ram Trucks. Andy Barron Salvetri. I am Jason Fitz. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to get you caught up on everything you need to know. We got a big game tonight, Packers Lions. But gentlemen, let's start with the question, okay? Because I'm just going to reveal behind the curtain here. You guys were giving me a little bit of strategy going into this thing. Andy Barron's, let the world know. Like, I'm in last place in a bunch of my leagues. And frankly, I'm the moron this year that keeps forgetting to set my own lineup. Like, this whole hosting fantasy football content with my procrastination skills is not helping me set my lineups. But let the world know, you were just revealing that oftentimes when someone like you is sitting in first place, you'll help someone like me sitting in last place because it helps your standings, sir?
It's not really about helping your league mate or helping your neighbor. Sal and I were discussing the amount of time that we have spent this week prodding other people in the league to set lineups and maybe to set better lineups than those that they've already locked in. Because you get in situations where, man, for me to make the playoffs, it sure would help if that other team lost. And oh, look, they're playing a team that hasn't actually maintained their lineup particularly well throughout the season. So yeah, I'll reach out in week 13, week 14, make sure that everybody's setting good lineups to knock off opponents if it benefits me in any way.
I mean, Sal, let's be honest here. Where are we on somebody that's like way out of it and inactive that hasn't even been participating? I don't know, spending their entire fab budget on a player just to mess up the rest of the league?
I mean, you got to make an impact where you can. So I'm all for this. I just introduced myself. I think 3 or 4 different leagues. I literally just introduced myself to some people in the league this week. I said, hey, how are you? Sorry, we haven't met before, but I need you to spend your entire fab budget on Isaac Horrendo. It worked in 2 of those leagues. We cleared. I couldn't afford him. So if it's not me, it can't be some of my rivals. And yeah, it worked out in some of those. So yeah, fair game, complete fair game.
Look, we're bringing honest strategy to you guys at this point. It's late in the season. We're just being real with everybody. It's bye-week blues, too. It's like Hill Street Blues, but better. Look it up, kids. It was a TV show. 6 teams this week are on the bye. It's back. It's a doozy. We're going to save your rosters, though. You guys can get involved in the chat. I'm looking at it right now. Hashtag AskFFL. That's how you get in on this thing. We're here for Thursday Night Football. So let's tell you about the game you want to see. Packers at Lions. This thing, Lions favored by 3.5. The over-under on at 52. And we can all just agree we're happy that it's in Detroit because it's indoors. Romeo Doubs ruled out with a concussion. Almost everybody else will be fired up and ready to go in this pivotal NFC North matchup. So, Andy Barons, give me a player that you've got your eyes on.
Oh, for me, it's Jordan Love. I've got him starting in a couple of leagues. First of all, I think people remember that last year, his season was really a tale of 2 halves, right? In his final 8 regular season games, he threw 18 touchdown passes, 1 interception, averaged nearly 270 yards per game. He was great. This year has been somewhat different, but Love did throw 11 interceptions in his first 8 games, which already matches his full season total from last year. His last 3 games, though, they've been great. All wins, 6 total touchdowns, 1 pick, 10.3 yards per attempt, completion percentage near 70. So maybe we're getting some of the same second half surge that we saw just last season. Love, he's one of the more aggressive downfield throwers in the league, right? Just as he was last year. His ADOT this season, 9.5. That's not Jameis level, but it's pretty high. Honestly, his receivers have done him very few favors. According to PFF, Love has been victimized by 21 drops this year, which is kind of crazy. Nearly 10% of his on-target passes have been dropped by his receivers. And you can picture some of them, right? Wicks, Christian Watson a couple weeks ago. If you're going to beat the Lions, especially in their building, man, you cannot have focus mistakes. You can't waste drives. You certainly can't whiff on big play opportunities. Jordan Love this week and every week is obviously an excellent fantasy option. We need his receivers to match his level of play.
Not the last time you'll hear his name in today's show. All right, Sal, give me somebody you've got your eye on that you're keeping an eye on for tonight's matchup.
Yeah, I'm going to the Packers running back, and it's Josh Jacobs, who, I mean, this guy has been phenomenal. You look over the last 2 months, 8 weeks of the season, he's averaging exactly 20 fantasy points per game. Only Saquon Barkley at the running back position has been more productive during that stretch. Yes, it's Josh Jacobs over Devon Achane, Jahmyr Gibbs, all these other running backs who have had great stretches. Jacobs has quietly been better, and I say quietly because on a week-to-week basis, I never see him ranked in the top 5 at the position. Rarely, honestly, is he ranked in the top 10 until these last couple of weeks, and now it's 6 teams on bye. He's finally there, and it's deservingly so. He's topped 100 total yards in 5 straight games. And the whole identity of this Packers offense is now Josh Jacobs. They're running the ball with him since the bye week, 22 touches a game. And Matt LaFleur came out and said, I want to activate him a little bit in the pass-catching game. Well, he had over 70 receiving yards last week, and now he's taking on the Lions, who, generally speaking, is a tough defense, but they are so banged up right now. I mean, 50 to 70% of their defense is hurt or on IR. And a couple weeks ago against the Lions, he had 100 yards in the first half alone. Then Jordan Love throws a pick 6. The Packers play from down multiple scores. They abandon the run. I think Josh Jacobs continues to be the engine of this offense in a close game where the Packers might even lead at times. He's the player that I'm watching.
All right, I love the position, but I'm going to go with the different running back that I got my eye on, and it's Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, usually, I'm telling you on Thursday Night Football, I like running backs because you want to simplify in a short week. This obviously hasn't been a short week for the Lions. But look at the history of Jahmyr Gibbs. When he has what is considered a bad fantasy game, he doesn't have 2 of them in a row. Earlier this season, his worst fantasy game was about 12 points against Dallas. He blew up the next week against Minnesota because that is what he does. At some point, we have to look at it and say over the course of the last couple of years, whenever his production has dipped, when it hits a low, it immediately spikes back up. Why? Because sometimes fantasy and real football mirror each other. On the actual game, I think they're going to feed Jahmyr Gibbs. They've spent the last couple of days figuring out where he didn't get his targets, where he didn't get his carries, and how they will get him better involved in this matchup. Remember, the Lions underperformed on Thanksgiving Day, so I expect a different version of Detroit, and I expect a different version of Jahmyr Gibbs, particularly in this one. Look for a huge bounce-back game from him. Speaking of predictions, let's bring in some props. Give everybody a chance to make a little cash. All right, bring in the props. We're all tied up. We've gotten 6 right across the board on this one. And when you talk about props, I'll start first on this because I've been on a bit of a heater. Jordan Love over 1.5 touchdowns. Again, we just heard some of the drops issues. And this is where you can easily tell me, well, Jordan Love didn't do that well against the Lions the first time. I will remind you that that was part of the 3-game span that he was under 1.5. That's the only time all season he's been under 1.5. Every other single game, he's been 2 or higher. So what have they had the chance to do? This is usually, again, short week. I'm usually panicking. I'm not panicking when it's a short week with an opponent that you know incredibly well. So to me, familiarity here matters. For me, familiarity recently and having played matters. Jordan Love is farther ahead in his planning than he would be usually for a Thursday night game. I like Jordan Love, especially knowing that they're going to have to get points to match anything the Lions do. I don't think they can just rely on the run. I think a couple of touchdowns come through this makes it easy. Andy, give me your prop.
Yeah, first of all, if I don't hit this one, I might have to switch to kickers for the rest of the year. But give me Jameson Williams' longest reception over 22.5 yards. He's done this in 6 of his 10 games this season, and he had a 21-yard catch in one of the others. Usually, when he goes over this number, he goes way over this number. His average yards per catch on the season is actually 18.5. So I'm really only looking for a slightly above average reception here. I kind of like these props that only require a single successful play also in order to hit, right? And this one happens to be a fairly standard issue game for this player. Green Bay's pass defense has been middle of the pack this season. They are, again, without Jair Alexander. Also, for what it's worth, Williams has done his best work at home over the course of his career. He's averaging nearly twice as many yards per game in Detroit versus games on the road. So I like that. I like him to collect at least one long field flipping catch tonight.
All right, by the way, we've got a question in the chat here from Jorge Alberto, or could be George, either one. I'm not sure. Sorry, brother. Jameson, BTJ, Keenan, MHJ, Mooney, which 2? So, Andy, I'll ask you that again. Jameson, BTJ, Keenan, MHJ, Mooney, which 2?
Yeah, I'm going to go Keenan here. First of all, he missed practice on Wednesday, but returned to a full practice on Thursday. Obviously, coming off a great game, and I'm going to go Marvin Harrison Jr. as well. Really, really difficult to trust Brian Thomas with Mac Jones. All of the others have fleas. I think those are your 2 safest.
All right, let's get back to the props. Sal, what do you got for us?
I mean, I obviously have an under for everybody. We can't just take all these overs tonight. So I'm going to go to the tight end position. We're going with Tucker Kraft, the Packers tight end, for under 37.5 receiving yards. And if you watched this game on Thanksgiving night last week, you saw Tucker Kraft have 78 yards. So many explosive plays, 17 yards, 16, 17. These are all the gains and totals that he had on receptions. He looked really good. He took advantage of Romeo Doubs not being out there, and he posted a season high with 6 receptions. He matched that in the game. He had 7 targets, his most since week 4. So he really got activated for the first time since the Packers bye week. But I start to look at some of the numbers under the surface, and really, if you watch the game, you can see it last week. He's not working downfield at all right now. If you look in this past week alone, he only had 13 air yards on six receptions and 7 targets. So at the line of scrimmage. The week before, just 1 air yard on his 2 targets. He's not working downfield, and now this number is rising. This number last week was around 29, 30. He had a big game, so it's going up, but the usage isn't all that great. If he doesn't see another 6, 7 targets, which would be, again, a season high for him, he's probably not getting there. So I'm going to go under on this one. I think he's still the 4th option in this passing attack, even with Doubs out.
As long as he gets the touchdowns, we all can be happy with that one. All right, let's get to numbers do lie. Sometimes there are trends out there that we all understand are fraudulent, trends that won't matter in week 14. Andy Behrens, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I'm looking at Trey McBride, and I am looking for the touchdown drought to end. McBride famously does not yet have a score, at least a receiving score this season, despite having 73 catches on 92 targets already. It's only week 14. Fantasy managers have, of course, been complaining about this because you're all spoiled and selfish. I am here to tell you that this weird McBride no touchdown thing can end at any moment, and it's a pure fluke, a wild accident. He's actually 7th at his position in red zone targets. He's tied with Brock Bowers in that regard. Also, the man has been targeted 27 times over the past 2 games, and he has caught 24 of them. He is helping you like few other tight ends have managed to do this season. He is paying the fantasy bills without touchdowns. I promise they're coming. When he last saw Seattle, this week's opponent, he finished with a dozen catches for 133 yards. So I will certainly take my chances with a touchdown challenged Trey McBride.
I just don't know why both of you guys are South Pole elves today. Like, there's not a lot of joy here. Sal, give me what you got. What's your numbers do lie?
Yeah, I think this week is the end of the Bryce Young's great play over the past month. Look, it wasn't just last week when he had over 300 total yards and 2 touchdowns against the Bucs for Bryce Young. He's been playing great the past month. That led to wins over the Saints and the Giants, taking the Chiefs down to the final play, and then last week forcing overtime against the Bucs. And really, that could have been another win if it wasn't for a Chuba Hubbard fumble in OT. Bryce Young's been great. I mean, if you look at PFF grades for passers in terms of what the film looks like, only 3 quarterbacks the last month have been better graded quarterbacks, and that is Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Sam Darnold, some guys who are having pretty solid to strong seasons this year. So Bryce Young, everything's been great. He's lifting the offense up. We're seeing usable weeks out of guys like David Moore, the tight ends. Adam Thielen now seems like a viable wide receiver, but this week it all ends because he's going to Philadelphia as a 13-point underdog, the number 1 ranked defense, the number 2 ranked pass rush, and that's what I'm most concerned about. Bryce Young, even the past month, has still struggled under pressure a bit, so I think it all comes to an end this week. If he just looks capable at all, though, in this type of a matchup, then you feel even better moving forward, even in a loss.
Yeah, you've gone full Krampus on us now. Like, Bryce Young's going to end his happiness. Like, all right, I'm going to go back to being Buddy the Elf. A lot of Christmas themes. That's not going to stop for the next few weeks. Let's go to Make Your Pick. We'll help you guys with some of the decisions you're out there trying to make. Remember, we got basically the whole league on a bye. Baltimore, Denver, Houston, Indianapolis, New England, Washington. Did I leave anybody out? Like, we got buys galore everywhere. So a lot of questions happening here. The first question comes from Andy Axe. Andy Axe says 2 from Mike Evans, Pickens, Smith and Jigba, and Calvin Ridley. What do you think, Andy Behrens?
Oh my goodness, these are great options. Obviously, you're having a successful season. I think I would hawk the practice reports with Mike Evans. Make sure he returns to practice on Friday. He's been dealing with a medley of injuries this season, the hamstring being the most serious. So that's a guy I want to play in any given week. If he can't go, then I'm going Smith and Jigba. I don't think I could sit Calvin Ridley in revenge week for him against the Jaguars. It's a super friendly pass defense. He's getting crazy target share. And you know he wants to put up a number in that game. You know he saw what Jerry Jeudy just did in a revenge game, and he wants one of his own.
Yeah, we'll be hearing about the Jerry Jeudy game on Sunday. I'll just tell you that right now. All right, the next question comes from Franklin. Franklin says, A.J. Brown or Puka this week, Kyron or Horrendo this week. What do you think? Sal, give us what you got.
Man, sitting either of A.J. Brown or Puka feels tough, but I'm going to have to start Puka Nacua here. I mean, you can't really say anything bad about A.J. Brown. They're 13-point favorites, the Eagles, against the Panthers. So, I mean, Jalen Hurts might only throw 18 to 20 times. Devonta Smith is due back as well. Puka Nacua is in the opposite scenario here. Should be a competitive game against Buffalo. That game has a 50-point total. Besides tonight's game, the Packers-Lions, that is the highest total on the week. I think it'll be a lot of points in fantasy production. And I know you probably just spent a bunch of money on Isaac Horrendo, so it makes it feel like, you know, he's valuable enough to get into your lineups, but not over Kyren Williams. I'll echo the same reasons. That matchup against Buffalo is just going to have a ton of points. They are home underdogs in that one, the Rams, with a 50-point total. Check down opportunities for Kyren Williams more than usual in this one. I think I'm going Kyren and Puka here.
All right, the next question comes from Burton Guster, which is just fun to say. Pick 2. Cooper Kupp, Mike Evans, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. Golly, how's life like that? All right, what do you think, Andy?
I think this is ridiculous. That's an amazing collection of receivers. Congratulations to you, Burton. Once again, I want to go Mike Evans here. Friendly enough matchup, obviously. Great player, obvious number one. We need to pay attention to the practice report on Friday, make sure he's okay. Otherwise, I think I want CeeDee Lamb. Man, he's banged up too. I'm picking the 2 injured guys for you, but how can you not want to pick on the Cincinnati defense? It's crazy to sit Cooper Kupp. He's a great option. If we're given any reason at all to worry about Mike Evans' health, you can pivot to Kupp.
All right, let's get back to the YouTube chat for another question because it uses emojis, and I like emojis. Matthew McNee said, ask FFL, need a win or I'm out of the playoffs. And then 3 sirens in a row. I respect 3 sirens. Like, you had to pull it up each time. Goff or Murray and Debo or Ridley. What do you think, Sal? Goff or Murray, Debo or Ridley?
Yeah, I'm going to be going with the wide receiver side of this one with Calvin Ridley. I mean, there's a lot of concerns that you can point out from the past month for Deebo Samuel. I do think some of those could be fixed and alleviated moving forward, but not for this week, not compared to Calvin Ridley, who is due for a bounce back. It wasn't a great game last week, just 2 catches, 45 yards. Will Levis had a blow-up game after playing well for the past month or so. They got down early, but it is a great matchup as we just echoed against Jacksonville. They allowed the most receiving yards and second most receiving touchdowns. And then I'm going with Kyler Murray. I mean, this is a make-or-break game against Seattle. They are trying to get into the postseason. This is probably their last real test of the year for Arizona. Their defense is playing well. I think it's going to come down to what the offense can do. So give me Kyler in a really big spot.
Let's get another one in here. No emojis, but we'll still ask it. Michael Harris says, Otto or Jonnu Smith at tight end and Evans or Judy for wide receiver. Ask Andy. What do you think?
Yeah, listen, I think Kate, I assume this is Kate Otten. He's fine. He's not doing what Jonnu Smith has been doing. I would play Jonnu Smith against the zombie Jets right now. That's an easy call for me. And then I know you want to play Jerry Jeudy coming off the monster game. It's not the same matchup. It's not the same scenario. Again, as long as Mike Evans is healthy, that's where I'm going.
All right, we'll get back to your questions before the show ends, I promise. But in the meantime, we'll take a look at the weekend injury report. Got some big names out there on the DMPs today. Breece Hall with the knee, Mike Evans with the hamstring, DeAndre Swift with the quad, DJ Moore with the quad. So, we thought we'd go to Twitter here where Will said, did Breece Hall just get shut down? And then all of a sudden I promised myself I wasn't going to cry. I feel that all the way to my core. Sal, like, what do you do at this point with Breece Hall?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many reports out there. There's reports that are saying this is like a multi-week injury that he's trying to play through and that he's going to play through. It doesn't feel great. Obviously, first off, it starts with tracking the Friday practice report. That will tell a lot. But if you have him on your team and if he suits up, I can't see a scenario into where I'm not starting Breece Hall, especially if you have to get into the fantasy postseason, assuming we don't get any more news. Any more negative news, of course, then starts to become a real concern. But 6 teams on bye. I don't know how many real replacements you have. I'm probably starting Breece Hall, assuming he's active.
All right. We'll keep you updated on all those actives, by the way. That's a shameless plug to hang out with us on Sunday mornings where we get you the latest, greatest news. But now, let's turn to our fantasy game changers for this week, powered by Ram Trucks, where we're identifying some of the most impactful players in one of the top fantasy matchups on the schedule. That's right, we got Atlanta traveling to Minneapolis to take on the Vikings. Vikings have won 5 straight, as we told you on Inside Coverage. Nothing is clear for the Lions right now because the Vikings are playing better than you would expect. Vikings favored by 5.5, over/under on this 46. So give me your fantasy game changer. Sal, who do you got?
Yeah, it's crazy looking at that just matchup preview. 10-2 Vikings, not their division leaders. 6-6 Falcons in their division league. That's where we're at right now with these divisions. And I'm going with Drake London here. Look, Drake London is, for some obvious reasons, a fantasy game changer. He's definitely in your lineups. He's the alpha wide receiver for Kirk Cousins in a matchup where they're 6-point underdogs. They're going to be throwing more than often, maybe close to 40 plus times in this one. And if that's the case, a wide receiver week in and week out, seeing close to a 30% target share, is probably going to have himself at least a lot of opportunities. And when Drake London has gotten those this year, he has produced, despite dealing with some poor play recently from Kirk Cousins and an own injury of his own midseason. Drake London is still a top 12 wide receiver, a wide receiver one in fantasy, and he's only 109 yards away from a new career high. It's not really all that hard for him to get there, just top about 900 receiving yards. But I actually think this matchup is a little bit sneaky good for him. You think the Vikings, Brian Flores, the defense is strong. They play a lot of zone coverage. How do you beat zone coverages? Well, short passes. So Bijan Robinson should get a little bit activated in this one. But Drake London often is motioned into the slot. He plays nearly 50% of his snaps out of the slot in these types of matchups against heavy zone teams. I think we're going to see a lot of short passes and receptions for London to work after the catch. One of those 7-8 catch games, nears 100 yards, maybe sets a new career high in this one. He's my game changer.
I love that. Andy Behrens, who you got as your game changer?
Yeah, you don't need an expert to tell you to start Bijan Robinson. He's great. I just want to say nice things about him. He is simply having a superhero level season. He's producing highlight plays at a rate that is pretty much only matched by Saquon Barkley. Robinson isn't getting nearly as much buzz in fantasy circles, though, in part because he opened the year with a bit of a TD drought. But over his last 7 games, the man is averaging over 120 scrimmage yards per game with 7 touchdowns, 33 receptions. This is a do-it-all back with elite tackle-breaking ability, receiving ability. Tyler Algier does remain involved because he's a good football player, but Robinson has actually been on the field over 70% of the snaps so far this season. He's also coming off a game with 32 touches and routinely seeing 20 plus per game. Robinson is about to hit 1,300 scrimmage yards on the year. He'll probably be at 1,400 by the end of this game, and he should be headed for all-pro recognition too. He's just been absolutely dominant. Not only a game changer for Atlanta, but a season saver for some of us in fantasy.
Yeah, another great call by you. I'm going to go again with the running back, but I'm going to go back to my Thursday night. Like, hey, you're going to run the ball more. It's interesting to me. Aaron Jones is my fantasy game changer on this. I would just remind everybody that Aaron Jones has 184 attempts so far this season. Why is that significant? Because he only had 5 on Sunday. They only gave him the ball 5 times in a game that just absolutely didn't go the way any of us expected. But I do think a quick turnaround, and you're Aaron Jones, you're fresh. How often can we say that somebody's not beat up going into a Thursday night football game? But Aaron Jones just didn't get the usage that he usually gets. So even though this season has been up and down when it comes to how productive his carries have been, he's going to get a bunch of them in this football game. So frankly, Falcons and Vikings gives you the opportunity for them to come out and really be staggering with Aaron Jones. He's going to be fresh. I know it's a week, but he's going to be fresh on Sunday for it. All right, let's get to bold predictions. Bold predictions, Andy Behrens, what do you got for us? Bold prediction week 14.
Yeah, is it bold to say that Chase Brown can finish as the overall RB1 this week? He's basically a lock for a top 5 finish, I would say. I don't know if it's bold. Fitz, you can judge. But I am definitely predicting a huge week for Brown against Dallas on Monday night. Brown is averaging 123.5 scrimmage yards per game over his last 4. Basically become a foundational piece of the offense. Also, Dallas, we've talked about this in the past. They have just been brutal against the run. Dead last in rushing touchdowns allowed. Next to last in rushing yards per game allowed. Not surprisingly, Dallas has also allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing running backs. The defense has been better overall in recent weeks as key players have returned, but they are just a couple games removed from giving up like a 34, 35 point fantasy outing to Joe Mixon. Brown has also caught 22 balls over his last 4 games, so he is pretty much impervious to game flow. If they get down, he's a huge factor in the screen game. We just have a monster week incoming for a great back. Definitely an overall RB1 finish is in play.
I'll give you that. That's bold-ish. I mean, that's bold. I think Sal and I are going to get a little spicier with it. I'll give you a bold take on a running back. Sincere McCormick. If you are in a league right now where you've got to find a running back that can get you points, Sincere McCormick, who, trust me, I'd never heard of. And I'm a lifelong diehard Raiders fan. I didn't know who Sincere McCormick was. But look at what's happened over the last couple of weeks. He came off the practice squad a couple of weeks ago against the Broncos. He only had 5 carries, but he averaged 6.6 yards per carry with those 5 carries. That's substantial because he got a bigger workload against Kansas City, 12 carries for 64 yards. I believe Sincere McCormick is about to get a sincere shot at being the starting running back down the stretch for the Raiders. They've got injuries all over the field at that position, nothing they can handle. I think you're going to see a boatload of work because one thing we know is that the AP has made it clear that the Raiders want to run the football. They just haven't been able to. But Sincere, with the one-cut, straight-up running approach, has actually had some success. This team wants a bell cow back. I think it's going to be Sincere McCormick. So get out there, get him on your roster, and just watch. Watch when you get into the playoffs and you're desperate for another starting running back when all of a sudden you've got one by the name of Sincere McCormick. Sal, give me what you got. See, that's bold, Andy. That's what Sincere McCormick is bold.
I need it. I need it. I'm rooting for you.
Boldish. That's just
fine. Yeah, that was bold. I want to get spicy here. Jacoby Myers' career high in receiving yards is 169 yards. He's breaking that this week. He's getting at least 170 receiving yards this week. This guy all season long has been great. You look back since week 4, that was the last time that Devontae Adams was on this team. Jacoby Myers has a 27% target share. He ranks top 15 in fantasy production during that time. Okay, since the bye week, they changed their entire offense. They got a new play caller. Entering week 11, since then, 3 games, he's averaging a 26% target share, 10.7 targets per game. Aiden O'Connell takes over. It doesn't matter. We see him continue to average over 13 points per game dating back to last year with Aiden O'Connell. And now he gets an unbelievable matchup. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, allowing the 3rd most receiving yards per game this year, top 10 production to wide receivers. Heck, they just gave up 300 total yards to Bryce Young, 100 receiving yards and a touchdown to a 34-year-old Adam Thielen. I think that Jacoby Myers continues his dominance in this one as the really only viable outside receiver for the Raiders. And he's going to set not only 100-plus yards, a career high with at least 170 yards.
I mean, if Jacoby goes off and Sincere goes off, I'm going to have me a Sunday, boys. I'm going to have me a Sunday. All right, let's huddle everybody up. It's time for some hurry-up offense. You know what we do. We get through as many questions as possible with 25 seconds on the clock. And we will start this thing with the first question coming from Sean. Who do I start between Sam Darnold, Justin Herbert, Geno Smith, and Jordan Love? What say you, Andy Barrett?
Yeah, you start Jordan Love. I know there's some hesitation with these Thursday games, and you're like, oh man, I just want to postpone the pain until the weekend. Don't do it. Start Jordan Love here. You saw the game total here; it's 52. This is going to be a really fun one. They're going to be throwing. You've got multiple touchdowns incoming. I don't mind any of these other options, but it's Love for you.
That's a delay game, but that's fine. Next question comes from Esteban Pozzolo, which is just fun to say. Esteban Pozzolo. Detroit Lions defense or Chargers defense? Wow, that's where we are. Sal, give me what you got.
Yeah, overall, it's like 2 good defenses facing 2 good offenses, but, you know, the Chargers defense is healthier, I'll say. So I'll go with the Chargers here against the Chiefs. Detroit is just so banged up right now. It's not a short week for them. They've had a week off since last Thanksgiving, but if you're going to be down 6 starters on your defense going up against the Packers, I don't want to do that.
All right, the next question comes from Josh Strand, who says, Montgomery or Neighbors? Simple enough, Andy Behrens. What do you think?
Yeah, you can tempt me with Malik Neighbors if it's full PPR. They're getting the Saints. Nobody knows what the Saints are going to be from one week to the next. But if this is any other format, I want to go David Montgomery because it's basically a guaranteed touchdown or close to it.
You had 5 seconds to spare. Anybody you want to say hi to? Okay, never mind.
Oh, I wasted the time in the last one.
Ask FFL flex spot question. Currently, I have Gus Edwards going Sunday night, but was thinking of outright dropping him and picking up starting D Wicks tonight. Is this a crazy thought? What do you think, Sal?
It's not a crazy thought. I would do that right now if you're able to and you're still watching this. I think Gus Edwards, you know, if he scores a touchdown, he might need to score 2 to be viable for you. I like the variance in the wide receiver Wicks who can work downfield and just has more upside, in my opinion.
Get a YouTube question coming in from Luis Leon. I think I'm saying that right. Ask FFL, Rico, Tracy Jr., or Horrendo, PPR, Green Bay defense, or Dallas. That's a lot, Andy. What do you got? Rico, Tracy Jr., or Horrendo?
These are great running back options. I would actually go Gorendo here. It's close with Rico Dowdle. Like him, like his matchup, like everything about it, but I would go Gorendo here. You paid up for him in waivers this week. I would definitely play him. And then if it has to be one of these defenses, give me Dallas, I guess.
I like that. Philip Carter also in the YouTube chat says, do I play Reed over Jay Jennings? What do you think, Sal?
No, I wouldn't. I want Juwan Jennings. I think Juwan Jennings, the last couple of weeks, you might see the slump that he's had, but you need the context. Last week was a bad weather game in a blizzard, and he still led that team in receiving yards. He had about, I think it was 60% of Brock Purdy's passing production. And then when it comes to the week before that, Brock Purdy didn't play. I think we go back to seeing these 8 to 10 target plus games for Juwan Jennings as the clear alpha on his team. So I'm going Juwan Jennings.
Kansas City Steve asks, Metcalf or Ridley, Andy?
Yeah, again, we're playing Ridley in this one. We're playing him in the revenge game. We're playing him because it's an incredible matchup against Jacksonville. I love that spot. DK Metcalf, actually, wonderful player, has a terrible history against Arizona historically.
You got 8 seconds left. Do you want to say hi to your mom or anything?
Do I really have 8 seconds? Yeah, hi, everybody.
Well, never mind. No, now it's gone. It's gone now. All right. Nick, we'll get back to the questions from Nick. Nick, wow, I'm going to learn how to speak. Nick next says, Nick Michael says, need to bench one in a super flex league. Jaden Reed, Ladd, Justin Herbert, or Russell Wilson. What do you think, Sal?
Man, I'm going to sound like the biggest Jaden Reed hater, and I actually like him this week. But back-to-back questions. I'm sitting Jaden Reed here. I want to start these quarterbacks in the Superflex. I feel better about them. If I thought Jaden Reed was a top 15 option this week, it's a different story. And Ladd McConkey dealing with multiple injuries so far practicing this week. He's a top 10 receiver for me entering week 14.
I'm going to rewrite the song. I'm going to make the song Sal is going to hate. All right. Dusty Locke says, should I start Kraft tonight at tight end or go with Ingram Sunday? What do you think, Andy?
I'm playing Kraft tonight, and I'm hoping for a touchdown. I just don't want to tie myself to that Jacksonville offense with Mac Jones at the controls. We don't know where the ball's going to go. We know that it's not going to look great, and we know they're playing a pretty frisky defense. I want Kraft. Again, no Romeo Doubs, probably frees up a couple of targets for him. Look at that. Cut off.
It was well. Dan Wagner, which I'm going to make Wagner just to sound fancy. Reed, Wagner. Shakir, Jennings, or Horrendo at flex PPR. What do you think, Sal?
Yeah, I'll go with Horrendo in this one. It's actually really close with his teammate Juwan Jennings, but I'll take Horrendo in a matchup that is quietly better than it might seem against the Bears this year. I think Horrendo is going to get that full workhorse treatment, most likely 16 plus touches, assuming this one stays close. Give me Horrendo.
So I'll ask you then also, Sal. TB12BB6 in the YouTube chat says Horrendo or Connor. What do you think, Sal?
Horrendo or James Conner? I'm going James Conner there. James Conner, it's been a little bit sketchy in some of these past games matchup-wise. He leaves with an injury here and there. But again, this is the biggest game on the season for both of these teams' playoff hopes, in my opinion, for that division as well. I think James Conner is someone they've relied on for 3 seasons now, especially this season when he's healthy. And I'm going to be going with him in this matchup.
I love it. Andy Behrens, how about Quentin Brown asks us, says solid FFL crew tonight. I don't know, is solid good? Anyway, he says PPR, Reed or wait and chance it for Ladd. Could start Amari Cooper if Ladd doesn't play as well. What do you think?
I guess I'll jump on the Reed hate that Sal started. I don't feel bad about Jaden Reed tonight at all, but I would play Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey's a star. And assuming he's going to go in that one, in a huge game for the Chargers, he's going to get peppered with targets. There's nobody else like him on that team. I want McCarthy.
All right, that does it for us right here on Fantasy Football Live. Remember, we're back here Sunday morning at noon Eastern. We'll get you set for the remainder of Week 14, noon to 1. Big bye week. We'll answer even more questions. So we are here to help you on behalf of everybody behind the scenes that works their tails off to make the show happen. And those 2 South Pole elves around me there, Andy Behrens and Sal Vetri. I'm the North Pole elf. I'm Chipper and Dandy. I'm Jason Fitz. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching Fantasy Football Live, presented by Ram Trucks.